In this video, I'm going to go over how I created the, or determined the fields I wanted to use in my locator for our On Your Own. This is the PDF of the metadata that comes with the roads, all data from San Diego County. So the first thing I do, I'm not really familiar with this roads data set, and if you're not familiar with the data set of the reference data, it's always good to check through the metadata because sometimes they tell you a little bit about what is going on. So you can read through the general description, road center lines, but I was really interested in getting down to some of the fields. So I know from the lab and from previous experience, at a minimum, I'm going to need the from left and to left and the from right and to right, as well as, you know, the name of the roads and the suffix, like how the avenue is written, how it's abbreviated on the reference data to understand how to match it to my points. So it goes through a bunch of things. It tells you like the overview. It also gives you some coordinates, which we're not going to use. And it has this, we're lucky it tells us address ranges. So we have 8 attributes that are going to tell us the high address on the left and right, as well as the high and low addresses. So we have 8. So that tells me I need to go look at these 8 to figure out what one is most appropriate, because we only need 4 for the low, from and to left, and the from and to right. So let's scooch down to where we get into a little bit more detail. Okay. We'll get to the roads in a second. Okay. So there are, did I miss the right? Well, I'll come back to that. There are a couple of things that I start to see. One, the low address. This is one I think I have in the lab. Yeah, low address is the lowest address value from the left side of the road, and it's helpful because it tells us this is generally the from value. And this is important because in ArcGIS Pro, it's asking for the from value, not necessarily the lowest address. So this was really helpful to me to be like, okay, low address, confirm, this is going to be the from value. And then you I may have missed it, keep scrolling through. Did I miss it? Let's do this. Okay, so then we have our low address, that's the lowest address on the right side of the road. It's generally the from value. We can look up the R high address. So we can see the high address, generally the 2 values. That's how I found them, because I was just looking through, trying to make sure I knew which ones were the 2 and the from. So same thing for the low if we looked that up. The next thing that I went and checked was, let's go back up to our road names. There are 10 different options for road name attributes. There's a maximum of 20 characters, a maximum of 30 characters. So this I knew when I looked at our data let's just look at the Frosty Sands, when looking at how the roads names are written, it looks like they're all spelled out. Let's see. We can go into our field view. Oh, why isn't this letting me? Oh, because I'm not on it. No. From here, we can, well, let me go back. There we go, it's under the wrong tab. So we can click on that fields view, and we can look at things like, see how many characters this street name has, and they have 75. So we want to have, is that the right column? Yes, street name. We want to make sure we have the 30 characters in the at least at 30 characters, because they have up to 50 in our road name. So we're going to focus on the 30 options. So let's scroll down and look at those. Okay. So here we're seeing pre-direction component for our roads. Wait, we're still... Okay. So we're getting to the 30 roads. This is the road full name, including prefix, direction, and suffix. We're seeing the road post, if there's a post direction component. Then the official road name of the road abbreviated to 30 characters without the pre and suffix components. So that's why we're using the R30 name, because it will match, it's supposed to match our name here. You'll also notice, though, I think we have this. We do have the site address, which is going to be the full address, so that's something to consider too, using that. Well, we don't have the numbers in front of it, but they do have the 30 full, which just has the suffixes and probably prefixes. So that may not work, but so that's why in the example you'll see that we went with the 30 name instead of the 30 full, because this matches up with the street names here. Okay, let's see. The other thing that I did, and this is something that, oh, I didn't do in the lab. The other thing that I did was, I did notice that there's the suffixes and prefixes that I'm pulling from here, and I'm sticking with the 30, the RD, or just the 30 version, because, actually let's go back to the metadata, because it will explain it better. When I looked at the suffixes for the 20, I noticed that the AV, or any of our 3-lettered sort of suffixes for the street type, I noticed on our data it had the 3 letters for avenue, and this is on our sites we want to geocode, and when, so I knew that would be a problem if we stuck with a 20 suffix, because we wouldn't get those 3 letters. So here we're getting, 3 letters, all the letters for boulevard. Avenue has 3 letters, so I knew that that would match better, so that's why I chose that one. The other thing I want to point out is on the locator, so let's go back here. The other thing I want to point out, hang on. Okay, so when I'm geocoding this table, I wanted to point out that I did add in a couple other values to this, the match fields. So I left it in multiple fields, and I did the city, the state is in there. I added in the zip code. That seemed to improve my results a bit, so I just put in zip code 1. And that's on here, that's just this column, just with the zip code. So let's see what happens. Let's run this real quick. So this is what you get if the other thing I forgot to adjust was the street address. So I forgot to add in the address name. So if I didn't add in anything for the address and just added in the zip code, I got a 10% match rate, which isn't great. So let's say no, because we don't want to look at that. We'll just remove this real fast. Okay, so the other thing I mentioned in the lab, let's see what it looks like when I use that street name. That was the one that I originally wanted to match up to and make sure the address looked the same. There it is, the street name here. So we'll run that real quick. see if that improves that 10% match score. So it did improve it a little bit, up to 14%. We got 10 more matched. But you'll note in the lab that I actually changed this to the full address, to the site address, which was this field that I mentioned before. And this was kind of just me testing things out, trying to figure out, I thought, wow, that was a really poor match score. So let me just see what happens if I include, or if I just use the site address instead of the street address. I mean, 14% is pretty terrible, and it would take me forever to go through it. So I was really just looking for things to try. So let's run this now that I've changed it from site name to site address, or street name to site address. Okay, when I changed it to the site address, we ended up with a 91% match score. So we have 195 matched versus the 32 or whatever it was. So that leaves us 19 to work on for the lab, and a lot less work for us than some of the other options. So that is sort of how I worked through how to choose them. And then as I was working through this lab, some of the things I changed in the geocode table tool to work on it a little bit more to improve it.